Thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome to Educate. It's great to finally get a chance to meet a lot of you face to face after a lot of years of working together. So what we're going to be covering down here is around the capabilities of customization from a business and product point of view. The idea here is that simultaneously upstairs we have the kind of developer track of this, and there are a lot of common elements shown in it. What they'll be diving into will be the real nitty-gritty of exactly how to go and do that. What we're going to look at here is more around the product, the business case, the why, and the kind of people you need to do it, and also what you can achieve at a broad product view. The idea being that you guys can all go away with lots of ideas, and all the developers upstairs can hate you afterwards for coming to them with them. So just to start off and introduce myself, again, I think I have met most of you over email or phone over the years. My name is Neil McGough. I'm Director of Technical Sales and Client Support with Learnosity. My co-presenter today is Gonzalo Zawadzki, who's a business development engineer with Learnosity, and I think between the two of us, we've worked with a lot of you guys. So, just to give you an idea of the key things we're going to hit on over this session, we're going to dive a little bit into Learnosity's philosophy of customization, a few demos and real-life examples to illustrate the impact that it can have, walk through a little bit of why it's important, what we're talking about specifically when we're talking about customizing in Learnosity, a bit about what you can achieve and why you'd want to do it, and then we'll just sum up and kind of walk through some of the key takeaways that we want to make sure that you guys have at the end of this. Also, then at the end we'll just have a little bit of Q&A time for any questions that may come up as a result of that. So let's start off covering a little bit about the Learnosity customization philosophy and how we got to where we are before we talk about exactly what it is. This isn't something that we kind of came out fully baked with. This is something that's gone through a lot of cycles, a lot of innovation, a lot of discussion with clients, a lot of back and forth with clients around needs. One of the biggest things is starting off when Learnosity was first founded. Learnosity was a platform-based, large monolithic system. Obviously, this is it was a good monolithic system, but one of the things here is that it was significantly less flexible. And what we found was that we're spending a lot of time making small cosmetic changes for clients because we controlled the whole platform, not because we were the best people to do it. Whenever you end up with a large platform like that and that third party is going and interpreting your branding, your styling, your user interactions, and having to go and do that work, it means you're never getting a full, actual, realistic representation of what you wanted in the first place. You're getting it viewed through a third-party system and through a third party's lens or view. So, as we switched to kind of an API model, roughly 6 years ago, we realized that flexibility was key, and that was one of the main things we really wanted to try and focus on, was to do all the powerful things that we possibly could, but let you use it in ways that you need it, ways that we couldn't even think of in the first case, make it easy to change things and not get in your way. One of the most interesting things over the years has been the number of times we've seen the APIs used in a way that is drastically different to how we imagined it in the first place, and in ways we literally would not have considered during the design phase, but that were possible and that worked and that were stable because of the philosophy that we'll detail now here. The key areas around what that philosophy is, we really hit kind of 5 main things. Starting off with design neutral, high quality neutral design, configurability, the ease of styling on top of that, which is going to be a big piece of what we talk about here, the ease of being extensible and being able to kind of expand on areas of the APIs, and being componentized. So let's dive into those and just focus on what each of those means for a minute. In terms of design neutral, what we're talking about here is high quality design that can slot in anywhere seamlessly. Should be strongly defined UX within this. So the idea being that even though we're a third-party element within your website, it should never be noticeable to a user that they're fundamentally switching the UX paradigm that they're dealing with, or that there's something unnatural in how we're doing it, because we should be doing it in the best possible, most natural way for a user. Should be a strongly defined structure and language to that UI, so that and this is one of those areas we've been developing a lot over the years. If you're dealing with different parts of the same system, whether that be the authoring side, the assessment side, the reporting side, that language should be consistent. Make it easier for users to recognize that these are all kind of related areas, make it easier for you to know what you can style and change on top of that, all those kind of things. Equally, simple configuration. The idea here being that as we are, as Gavin and Mark would say quite a lot, we're the heavy lifting behind a lot of this, that what we allow out of the box and easily modified is that common out-of-the-box behavior. The 90% of use cases that exist between all of you in this room, doesn't matter whether you're in K-12, doesn't matter whether you're in higher ed, corporate, any of those, that when you're placing an assessment into a product, there's a common language and a common kind of 90% of use cases, and those should be simple and very, very clearly defined. Easy to style, and we'll dive into this a little bit more kind of over the later slides and with a few demos, but make sure that the changes that can make Learnosity's APIs in your product unique are easy to achieve. This is one that a couple of years ago we couldn't have turned around as easily and said, yeah, you can do all this. You know, we were in a situation where the assessment wrapper was in an iframe, it was more difficult to style, and we progressively made more and more improvements to allow you to make that change. Extensible, the idea that you can build the system you want to build around Learnosity, that you can react and trigger events in Learnosity and behavior in Learnosity as you need it. So this can be anything from wanting to know that the APIs have loaded, or that a student has clicked the check answer button, or validated it, navigated to the next item. You want to pop up a modal in the assessment wrapper that has your own content. All those kind of areas that essentially allow you to build around us for the use cases that are bespoke to your business needs, that we're never going to be the best never going to be the best placed people to do, but we enable it in a very easy manner. And finally, componentize. The idea here being that we're never prescriptive about the best way to use these tools. That you can take different elements of different APIs, mix and match them, jump straight into a user experience halfway through one of them, or what we might consider halfway through, and be able to build that kind of very unique experience. We always use that kind of Lego analogy that, yeah, it's building modular building blocks, and you would have noticed that with your Christmas present this year, that's one we went for. So why do we do this? The core elements here are that we want to be optimized for change. There are going to be times when you need to change your system. It might just be the wrapper around your assessment part. You want to change the UI, you want to change your logo, you've got a completely new design or marketing team, and they want to make fundamental changes there. We should never be a blocker to that. That is key to your business, not to ours, and we should just enable you to be able to do that easily. The second side of this would be on the kind of economies of scale area. There are things that Mark and Gav again touched on this in the high kind of low effort, low impact pieces. There are all those things that are unique to your business that, yeah, there are plenty of times when people might want us to go and help out and assist with branding or those kind of areas. But the basic concept is if we do that for one of our clients, we really have to be in a position to fundamentally do that for 75 plus clients as we expand and as we grow. And the question is, which gives you guys the best value for money and the best return on investment in terms of what you pay Learnosity and what you use Learnosity for? Is it better value that you get 75 plus logo changes out of 2 sprints? Or is it that we get to concentrate on things like item branching models, which Rich and Andrew will be kind of showing off from a development point of view later today, or the aggregate reporting stuff that really, really adds significant value to your product? So let's go into a little bit of why this is important as well, or why we believe it's important for you guys to look at kind of taking some of these steps and seeing what you can possibly do here. I'll start off just with a nice quote that I think illustrates this pretty well, which is Walt Disney saying, "Do what you do so well that they'll want to see it again and bring their friends." So why do I think this is a good quote? So first of all, I kind of stand by the concept that if it's good enough for Disneyland, it's good enough for us. That's pretty much a life mantra. Separate to this though, in reality, customizing the user experience within your product and the way they navigate it, the way they use it, the way they learn through it, to their specific needs, keeps people engaged and reduces churn. I mean, this is something that we all know. It's pretty obvious to us in terms of the need for that. The second part of that is, no matter what your business model is, building a user base needs advocates. That's true for us in Learnosity. That's true whether you're selling directly to students, in which case you need to get students from okay using the system to engaged or happy using it. It's equally true if you're, the user you really need to convince is the teacher, is the parent that you're giving a student report to, or the administrator who's really got the buying decision and who wants to be able to view that kind of high-level reporting. the more you can customize that experience, and you do this all the way through your product everywhere else. The more you can customize that, the better value, the better experience you can get for that client or for that end user, and the overall less likelihood that you'll essentially lose a contract at some stage, or people move away from your platform, or those kind of things. You do it everywhere else in your product, and the main thing to get it in kind of across here is that this isn't a difficult, huge barrier to do on top of the Learnosity piece as well, and has huge value. So we're going to have a quick spot prize alert. So the first person to raise their hands and correctly answer this question will win a prize. It's a mystery prize with some lovely Learnosity wrapping paper on it. We really spent the money on the key things for the conference. So, what year was Learnosity founded? I think I saw Joan first.
2007.
Correct. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, we'll cross Joan's name off the list now. She can't get any more prizes. Great, so we're going to dive now a little bit. I'm going to switch over to Gonzalo, my co-presenter, and we're going to dive a little bit into the what, how, and why.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you, Neil. So Neil just gave us a great intro of what is customization, and now let's see what is customization on the Learnosity point of view. Let me move here. So I found this definition online by the Oxford Dictionaries that says customization is the action of modifying something to suit a particular individual or task. So that is very generic. Let's try to bring this to the context of Learnosity, and that's why we are here. So if you see there's something in bold, when we said the action of modifying something, that something for us is Learnosity, our Learnosity APIs. And to suit a particular individual or task, that's your business cases, your business needs. So we can say, in other words, that customization for us here is the action of modifying or changing the Learnosity APIs to suit your business needs. And by action, we can identify three main actions in the Learnosity customization. Those are configure, style, and extend. And we're going to go into more details on those. So starting with configure, configure is how you change the attributes and the behavior for the Learnosity items and assessment. This is the out-of-the-box Learnosity customization. And you can add actions to those items. So how you configure our APIs to suit your business needs, in this case. By style, this is all the visual changes, how you can change the look and feel of our APIs to fit in your system, in your product. How you make a unique experience using our APIs. How you apply those colors, fonts, and changes on the look and feel to feel as part of your product. And then extend. This is very flexible here. So by extend, we mean that how can you extend the Learnosity default functionality, adding new functionality? And when you have specific business cases that we don't provide as out of the box, you can extend our functionality. We provide public methods, events that you can do that very, very easily. So now that we know what is customization, and let's see what can you achieve, what can you do, and why you should do it. So again, starting with configure, why you should configure, because you need to think on your users, on your business cases. Usually, if you have an author creating an assessment for younger kids, it's going to be different than if you have an author created for an assessment for corporate learners or higher ed. So you need to think on how you're going to tailor that content if you want to add actions to that content using, for example, workflow where you can autoplay. If you want to have an intro or an outro item, how that assessment experience or the authoring experience is going to be. So you can easily turn on and off those settings that we provide as out of the box, and you get your Assess API configuration, for example. This could take you from 5 minutes, we can say, like just simple way to turn on and off things, 30 minutes, or it depends how much do you want to configure. As an example here, we can see this is an assessment on the big screen on the laptop there, where you can have a configuration of the Assess API with the navigation of items, for example, and the content, and well, everything looks nice there. But if you want to have the same experience in a mobile device, for example, you need to configure the APIs in a way that looks nice and users can have a better experience there. So you can turn off that navigation pane, for example, and well, there is a timer there, and you see the way that the same API, the same content, but with different configuration, you can have better experience in small devices. Another example, in the authoring experience, you have on the left, in the big screen, our author API with a question editor, and where you can see an author can create an item there, and at the same time, he can see the preview of the question, how the question is going to look for the student when they are doing the assessments. This works really well in big screens, but that doesn't fit properly in small devices. So for that, you can configure your authoring experience using, for example, question editor templates or layouts, and turn off, you can switch, as you can see there in the GIF, you have edit or preview. So for a moment, you can see in your edit view where the author is creating the content, and then you click on preview, and you see how the question is going to look in the assessment. So this type of configurations. When we're talking about style, and there's a lot of styling that you can do when you are creating, for example, custom CSS. You can have a designer or a front-end developer working in custom CSS, changing the colors, changing the fonts, the styles, and creating a new a look and feel in a way that Learnosity, you can identify Learnosity APIs in your product. It's just one same product. We have an example here. This is our default UI of an assessment with one question. And if you apply some styles there, you can get something like this. Same content, same API, but different style and also different configuration there. But you see that the colors, the font, and all the experience there is different. This is specific for K-12 kids, and it works much better. They will feel more comfortable with those type of UIs than our default UI. In the authoring experience, the same thing. If you have, for example, professional and authors creating content, it's different than you have teachers, like just busy teachers, that they want to know the specific options to create that content, and they don't want to see all the other options there. So you can easily style your author experience, use our templates, our layouts, and tweak all of that, and get like a simplified version of the author API and the question editor, and have something like that where the authoring experience is simple and fits really well in your product. And finally, extend. And there's a lot of things you can do by extend. You can implement new functionality here, usually when you have a very specific, unique use case that Learnosity doesn't provide us out of the box. But what we do in that case, we give you public methods, we give you events, and different techniques that you can apply new functionality there very easily. And usually you have a product owner where he knows that we need to implement this, how we can do it. And you have a developer who is implementing it, and with JavaScript or well, using those methods. A great example of these are the custom questions. And as you know, we provide a set of question types. But sometimes if you, for example, need to implement a very specific question type that we don't provide, you can create that question. You can build a custom question and integrate it with the product. You can use it then in the question editor, you can use it in the assessment, you can get scoring, and all of that. You can extend our suite of question type very easily. Another example could be with the reports. We provide a set of reports API. They work really well, but in some cases you want to show something different. So you can take the raw data of the report and change the UI, change extend the functionality in that case. So this is the aggregated report, but you can add also some different styles there, some new functionality, and get a different experience more specific to what you want to see and you want to show to your users. So now let's see some real examples of how the Learnosity customization works. We have some demos here, and Neil is going to start with this now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gonzalo. So, excuse me. The first one we're going to bring you through here is a little bit of a demo walking through that kind of the basic out of the box Learnosity piece, the configuration, and the styling levels on top of that. The one thing to bear in mind as we go through this is that this is a demo I knocked up kind of specifically for the conference. As Learnosity's grown, I spend a lot more time talking and a lot less time writing code or CSS. So I'm probably the worst placed technical person in the company to do this. But I hope it also gives you then an example of just how simple it is, if even I can do it if I'm not doing it a huge amount of time. So let's start off, right? The first piece here, I'm going to zoom out slightly, is a basic Learnosity assessment. Completely unstyled, out-of-the-box configuration, a bunch of question types aimed at slightly younger grades, covering a variety of topics. So first one, the theme I chose here was ocean-based pieces. Second one is a ancient Egypt hieroglyphs image. Third one is space and mapping each of the, beside each of the planets, and on into kind of various different areas around that, Wild West, tropical rainforest, all these kind of very interesting ones. So the first step we decided to go with was to look at how we can just do configuration changes both on the item and the assessment wrapper to get a different experience. So let's look at the first one here.
Can you order these sharks from smallest to biggest? Hammerhead shark, basking shark.
I'm going to turn this lady
great
down now.
white shark,
So the first thing to notice there is a couple of things. One, we styled the UI of the assessment wrapper very drastically differently. The second thing is that we're making use of a piece called Simple Features, which is basically the ability to insert inline audio pretty much anywhere into a question. So that's quite a recent addition to this. The third piece is that we're using what we call workflow, which I think might be getting a nicer name recently, which is something that Learnosity's had for quite a long time. But the big change that we did recently was to put in a pleasant way to build that. So the idea being that you can set up behavior like on item load, play the first bit audio. Once that bit audio is finished, play the next one, play the next one. So what you get then is, for younger grades or for areas where, especially when you're on that borderline between where children's literacy levels may be at various different stages, where you want to make sure that you're asking a question that students can answer based off their knowledge, not off literacy levels and those kind of things. It becomes very useful. So we've gone through and we've added a little bit of audio into each of these.
Can you identify the animals
Indian was the
in
closest I could get to
hieroglyphs
Egypt,
below?
which is pretty
Click on the correct ones.
bad. But there's a good Welsh one in there as well. So we used AWS Poly to get a few examples of this. So the next stage then to look at is how you can style on top of this, right? And again, what we went with here was each of these questions had a theme. So let's look at what we can just do purely with CSS. The idea being here that this is exactly the same page.
From small
The only bit of JavaScript code anywhere there is looking at each item as we progress to the next one and looking to see what tag it has. There's a styling tag on each of these items. It's styling Deep Blue Ocean, styling Wild West. And with each of those, we're applying different pieces. We're also going and we're getting rid of the previous button. We're pulling the right or the next button into the center. We're relabeling it. We're making something big and simple. With each of these, again, we have that audio element in there. We got visual styles specific to each one. As we go through, we got our space ones. We got nice transitions. And the thing is, this is all entirely done through CSS. So this is all entirely done by something that UI or UX developer on your site commonly works in on a day-to-day basis and is easy to do. It's also one of those areas that, kind of a large part of my role and my group's role in Learnosity is helping you understand what's possible and directing your designers and developers in the correct manner. So this is also something where you can reach out to Learnosity and go, hey, we want to look at doing this. Can we hop on the phone and walk through it and see what's really possible there? The second kind of demo we'd just like to flick into as well is kind of showing that with simplified authoring. So this is a live example of the screenshot Gonzalo showed earlier. This was done as a hack day by a couple of developers, just to show off a very much a strongly styled Learnosity authoring experience in the style of a unnamed product, which we won't go and mention. So if I click into add here, what we have is a very different experience to the standard Learnosity experience. If I click add question and more, I have all of the different question types shown in quite a different manner. If I click into math, first of all, this is styled. Second of all, in these templates, we're removing all of the things that are not necessary for a teacher or author. The idea being that there are drastically different requirements and needs between trained content authors who work in the industry, have worked with these kind of tools before and know all these kind of things, and teacher authors who really the barrier of entry needs to be really, really low because they've never worked with it. Their level of the level of willingness to go and engage with this is not necessarily huge unless they're really invested. And actually, this is something that we are looking at over the next while, bringing out kind of a very simple teacher authoring flag for the APIs. So you get that really simplified mode kind of piece out of the box. It's somewhat kind of short to medium term, but it'll be really useful. And I'll let Gonzalo run into the last demo.
Okay. So the last demo we have, this is the little blue Riding Hood. This is a great example of assessment customization here. This was done in a hack day by one of our designers, Andy, and two developers, Jack and Samir. They work during the day on a project just to build this. It was just 1 day of work. And they did a great configuration and extension of our Learnosity API. So when I start here, you can see there is animation, different graphics there. I click continue, and we're going to see a Learnosity question here with a different style. And I can answer this and continue. So it's a great experience of learning through like different scenes, storytelling, and kids will love this. So it's a great example of customization in a way that you can see how Learnosity APIs are configured in a way that fits really well there. The style, it's totally different. You have different colors, different UI, and finally you can extend that functionality, adding animation and the look and feel of a book. There you go. I need to answer something here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know the answer. So now Neil is going to give us the latest comments, the conclusions, and the final thoughts on this.
Are these available to us?
Yeah, I want to make them all available afterwards as well. So yeah, so I guess the last piece we want to run through is really just kind of a few closing arguments on customization and why it's valuable. The first thing to think about within all this is that there are levels of customization, and all of this is every one of our clients, everybody in this room sits somewhere on this spectrum, and where you sit in this spectrum is really driven by your business needs. Some of you guys may want to move further up that spectrum and kind of provide more customization within it, but the idea is that you should concentrate on the areas that make sense from your business cases. So configuration, for instance, is simple. Everybody should be looking at the assessment wrapper that they've dropped into their system and going, are these the settings we wanted, or did we just use the Learnosity out of the box ones? We think the Learnosity out of the box ones are pretty good, but there's always reasons to change those, to question that. And that's really just a kind of a simple review step and really easy to change. As we say, kind of the skills and tools you need is just knowledge of using the Learnosity authoring platform for a lot of that stuff. And it really is a minutes to hours kind of piece of work. The next level of that is obviously the styling piece. Not everybody will need to do that. People will need to do it to a differing degree. For some people, it's simply a case of presenting a clean assessment interface, and we're going to go and change the color of a couple of buttons, or we might change the styling of them a little bit. And that's perfectly fine. Other ones, especially when you get into younger grades, there are things like you want to change the font because you want a rounded A and an open 4, or any of those kind of areas there. That's all really doable as well. You'll notice in the demo that we showed there, the fonts were different, really easy to do. Again, that's kind of an hour stay piece. And then extend is that big broad product question of what do you really want to do with assessment? How do you want students to experience assessment? What are the possible use cases you have there? And that is a big thing. That's not going to be everybody. Not everybody has the time to do it. Not everybody has the return on investment to do it. But again, it is one of those ones that me and the larger team are here to help and kind of discuss with you guys as well. The kind of takeaways overall would be to remember that Learnosity is designed from day one to be customized. That is 100% our philosophy, and we endeavor to make that as simple as possible, and we're there to kind of support that. That it's not an all or nothing choice, as we mentioned, that you can customize only the areas that are important to your users. Really that you're only limited by your imagination. Demos that are built on top of Learnosity. In no cases are those things that are only possible because we are the developers and we went in and changed something on the back end that gave us extra stuff. In fact, anytime we build out demos like that and realize that there are gaps that prevent us from doing that, they're usually things that are put into the next sprint and fixed so that anybody else coming in and looking to do that is in a good position to do it. So with that note, I guess we'd like to turn over the floor and just see if there are any questions. And I'll move off that one because it gets annoying after about 10 seconds. Yeah?
Were all of those demos built using the assess wrapper?
Pretty much all of them were built using the assess wrapper. The extend one, the little bit Writing Hood, was actually built using the questions API, but everything there would be possible with the assess wrapper. Oh, sorry, John.
So would there be, say you do a lot of customization, would there be concerns around how that customization works as the APIs are updated?
So if you asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have had to be a bit more delicate around answering it. We have hit a point where we're significantly more stable on that that overall CSS structure. Equally, the one thing is it's always worth having a conversation with us because the more we know about how people use it, the better we can ensure that things like that don't happen.
Okay.
And then the other flip side would be if you do ever hit points with that, that's on us to help you get to where you need to be. I mean, if we fundamentally change something that has had a massive impact on your system, it's not in our best interest for you to be on old versions or anything like that. So that's the areas we're here to help on as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Right.
If we are exporting all of this into our own platform, do we still have all of this available to us and will it still work?
Yeah, well, that's the entire concept. The CSS would be part of your platform. So you'd have your platform, you'd have all the branding and everything, all the pieces that are College Board in that experience. You'd have Learnosity dropped into that, and the styling that was there could apply to both your navigation thing for a student on the left-hand side and the whole Learnosity experience within that as well.
You might want to repeat the question.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. So Maria was just asking as to whether that would be whether all that styling would be available within their platform when they're using it there. Yeah. Sorry.
So I know when I speak with our customers, the biggest thing, I handle all the product stuff on our team, and I speak with customers and I tell them all the different things they can do. They're like, wow, I wish I knew that, right? And it's the same thing that we experience when we're working with Learnosity. It's our developers like, wow, I wish I knew that. I wish I can, I can find that out quickly and easily. Now I've made myself a point of contact as well as my success team for those type of best practices, right? Is who do we contact directly for those type of best practices, so to see the different way that other companies have leveraged Learnosity, so that we can say, oh, that's awesome. I don't know why we didn't think about doing that.
Yeah. So just the question, just to paraphrase a little bit and correct me if I get it wrong, was kind of who are the core people in Learnosity to contact to one, understand the kind of things that are possible there, and also to be able to get that kind of best practice information from. And the answer there is myself and our team. So that is the technical sales and client support team. That's all of the staff who are on who use our ticketing platform. And I know tickets can always feel a little bit like it's you log a ticket and you'll get an answer back at some stage whenever you're using other things. We're always happy to hop on the phone and walk through these examples because it can really help short circuit that process and make it a lot faster. Yes, and so Jim was just pointing out there that kind of quarterly reviews, which we endeavour to do. They slip by a month or two every now and then, but we do reach out to all of you guys on a quarterly basis to try and set up something to run through a little bit about the new features that are there, or some of you guys who we have more regular standing calls for various reasons, but be able to kind of run through those kind of new features that are there since the last time, what new functionality you can really take advantage of. Tailor that a little bit as well to the fact that with a lot of you guys, we know how you guys are using the APIs. We know what's important to you, and we also know what's going to be probably pretty difficult for you guys to leverage because of your unique business case. So they're a big part of it as well. Yep.
I'm wondering if there's, have this as a use case, if others have inquired about this, some way to kind of take what's the configuration column and the authoring column and put those together a bit in terms of giving some kind of simple CSS tools as a tool set, so that you're talking about you might have a K-12 author, or you might have a higher ed or kind of a more sophisticated author. But I wonder what would be really helpful is to be able to have that not be part of just everything at all you can, but there are some CSS stylings that are there for you that might be more appropriate for Q12, or there's some things you can do. You don't need to be some kind of a CSS expert. You can just kind of like plug and play and drag and drop and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the question there is really about kind of whether there ever be any availability of kind of common themes of styling within Learnosity directly, rather than having to go and take the steps to kind of do it yourself. As of right now, it is very much kind of do a little bit of do it yourself, and we'll help with that. I definitely think personally I think there's a strong case there, especially for younger, like K-2 or kind of those areas where there's very specific needs. We are kind of starting to dabble with that in the authoring piece a little bit, with the idea of putting out that simple authoring step, and I wouldn't be overly surprised if it's something that we concentrate more. A large part of it is that for a long time, a lot of people didn't have a lot of clients put assessment tools in front of older grades in the K-12 markets, and a lot of people now are only just moving back to going, hey, we got to concentrate on that K-6 or K-4 market. So honestly, as we get more queries like that, I'd expect it's kind of something we look at stronger. And actually, I'm getting the chop sign from Kevin, so I think we'll have to call that one short. Yeah, just like to say thank you very much for your time.